Today is the Sunday in the church year known as Christ the King Sunday. It's technically the last Sunday of the liturgical year, so if you guys want to party like it's New Year's Eve, tonight's the night, and really probably all week long because next Sunday is the first Sunday of Advent, the start of the new Christian year. I can't believe Advent is on the horizon, and I'm excited about our Advent sermon series that we're planning. It's called Calm and Bright, Heavenly Peace for a Weary World. So if you could use a little heavenly peace this Advent, this is the place you'll want to be. And I encourage you to bring your friends and neighbors. Preparing in Advent makes Christmas even more special and helps us spot the birthday boy when he comes. So I hope that you'll make a special effort to be in worship during that season. On Christ the King Sunday, we are reminded that Christ is Lord of all. And we're going to talk about Christ our King through the lens of one of my favorite characters, if you will, in the Bible, Pontius Pilate. Pontius. Don't meet many people named Pontius. Even the name sounds powerful and maybe a little bit snobby even. You know, Pontius Pilate. The Roman procurator, the governor of Judea. I always thought of him as high up on a balcony before the crowds, wearing purple and gold. And I don't know about your Pontius Pilate, but my Pontius Pilate has an English accent. Played by somebody like Anthony Hopkins or like Professor Snape from the Harry Potter books. That's my Pontius Pilate. One of the things that I always, I think that I gained by thinking about Pontius Pilate this way is that Pontius is nothing like me. You know what I mean? I got an accent, but it's not English. And so I always thought, you know, Pontius Pilate is somebody long ago and far away, and I can't really relate to him very, very much. And then I read this little book by Fred Buechner, and it's called Telling the Truth, the Gospel as Tragedy, Comedy, and Fairy Tale. And my favorite part of the book is where Buechner imagines what Pontius Pilate is like. And in his imagination, Pontius Pilate doesn't seem that long ago and far away. Fred talks about what he imagines Pilate's day would have been like before he got to the office to meet up with Jesus, who was this messianic figure that was causing trouble on the fringes. So in Buechner's book, that day, Pilate wakes up and he decides he's going to quit smoking. And this book was written like in 1970-something, so smoking was a lot more prevalent than it is now. But Pilate had been a 3-pack-a-day man. And so he picks this day to quit smoking. So he throws away all his cigarettes, all his secret stash of cigarettes. So he's feeling pretty good about himself on the day that he questions Jesus. In Buechner's book, he gets into a limo and is driven into work, past all of the things that any city has, right? Children playing in the streets, a drug deal or two, real life. And Pilate's limo goes past all these things as he reads the paper. And in the paper there are wars and rumors of wars. There are all the things that we see on the news. Romaine lettuce is going to kill you. The Romans are upset because they think Roman, it's a whole thing. And then Pilate gets to work, goes into his office. He gets a phone call from his wife who's been having bizarre dreams. And so he's talking to her on the phone, trying to calm her down. And then he realizes that he's no longer alone in his office. They've brought the upcountry Messiah in for questioning. Pilate is caught off guard, and before he knows what he's doing, he takes a cigarette from an onyx box on his desk and lights it. The man stands in front of the desk with his hands tied behind his back. You can see he's been roughed up a little. His upper lip is absurdly puffed out, and one eye is swollen shut. He looks unwashed, and he smells unwashed. His feet are bare. big, flat peasant feet, although the man himself is not very big. There's something almost comic about the way he stands there, bent slightly forward because of the way his hands are tied, and goggling down at the floor through his one good eye as if he's looking for something he's lost, a button off his shirt or money somebody slipped him for a cup of coffee. If there were just the two of them, Pilate thinks, he would give him his car fare and send him back to the sticks where he came from. But the guards are watching. And on the wall, the official portrait of Tiberius Caesar is watching. The fat, powdered face, the toothy imperial smile. So he goes through the formalities. So, you're the king of the Jews, he says, the head Jew. Because there hasn't been one of them yet who hasn't made that claim. David come back to give Judea back to the Jews. The man says, it's not this world I'm king of. But his accent is so thick that Pilate hardly gets it. The accent together with what they've done to his upper lip. As if he has a mouthful of stones, he says, I've come to bear witness to the truth. And at that, the procurator of Judea takes such a deep drag on his filter tip that his head swims, and for a moment he's afraid he's going to faint. He pushes back from the desk and crosses his legs. There's a papery rustle of wings as the pigeon flutters off the sill and floats down toward the street. Standing by the door, the guards aren't paying much attention, mostly staring up at the ceiling. Cigarette smoke drifts across the surface of the desk. The picture of his wife when she still had her looks. The onyx box from Caesar. The clay plaque with the imprint of his first son's hand on it, made when he was still a child in nursery school. Pilate squints at the man through the smoke and asks his question. I never thought about Pilate that way. But so much for Pilate being at arm's length from me. Buechner's interpretation of Pilate is somebody that I know. He's like a guy in middle management. He could be my best friend. He's like me. I bet this Pilate guy likes to eat at Bob Evans. I love Bob Evans. Can I just say, church, one of the greatest things about being your pastor is that I get to go back to Bob Evans? Pontius Pilate could be the guy in the next cubicle over. He could be our neighbor. He could be my best friend. And he asks, what is truth? I can't believe he had the guts to ask. Did he really want to know? It could have been one of those sarcastic things, like when the Pharisees are talking to Jesus and they're always saying, tell us, Jesus, if that's your real name. Have you kicked your dog lately? Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. But I don't think that's what Pilate is doing, not here. It seems like he could be throwing it out there, like a Hail Mary pass, like a penny into a wishing fountain. Like a fragile ornament on a Christmas tree. A prayer for healing, a prayer for peace. Just the hope for 1 second that the fat, powdered face on his desk doesn't really rule the day. And in the end, Pilate is not going to be left alone. This is not all there is to live the lives that we're all called to live, and someday, even to die, like we all have to one day. What is truth is still the unspoken question on all of our lips. And especially nowadays when everything seems like it's up for grabs. I'm not so sure gravity pulls down anymore. You know what I mean? What is truth is still the question on our lips. And it's hard to ask it because we are surrounded in a culture of deceit and lies. Deceit is nothing special. We're swimming in it. Just watch some advertising and you'll see. Advertising tells us we can live forever and be young forever, too. We learn that that romantical feeling that you have on your first date, that's going to last forever. Every single day through 70 years of marriage. Not really. We learn, by the way, that marriage is super easy. Every day. We learn that sex is a casual proposition. We learn that there's a cure for whatever ails us and that we can buy it if we just knew where to shop. Now, I know in the scriptural account that Terry read, there's nothing about 3 packs a day smoking. There's nothing about Pilate's fear of mortality or being a cog in a wheel. There's nothing about marriages gone stale or children in the streets. There's nothing about the funeral or the hospital visit. There's nothing about clinical depression or unemployment or alcoholism. Not explicitly, right? Only a question and silence. And yet what I like about it is, I think it's all in there between the lines. How many times have I narrowed my eyes and puffed on an imaginary cigarette as I come into some church somewhere to see if the man with the busted lip has anything to say to me in my real life? How many times, year after year, have I heard songs about Christ the King? And then I turn on the news and I read the paper, and it's not all about Christ the King. It's about the fact that romaine will kill you. It's about social media and kids getting shot. It's about troop movements and what's on TV tonight and how I can get tickets to the new Grinch movie. Yes, I do want to see it. In the midst of all this, do I dare to believe that Jesus Christ, the man with the busted lip, is the King of truth? Pilate asked Jesus, "What is truth?" And Jesus said nothing. He said not a mumbling word. Pilate asked Jesus, "What is truth?" Scene. End of section. Jesus says that his kingship is marked by truth, though. You say I'm a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice. Jesus Christ is the faithful witness as to what the truth is. And so if we would know what is truth, we need to look at what Jesus has to say. We know that Jesus turns the natural order of kingdoms on their ear a lot of the time. We know how kingdoms from this world operate, don't we? I mean, yeah, I know we're Americans and y'all are not into kings, and I respect that because America, I get it. We freed ourselves from some kings a few centuries ago. Not God save the king, baby, my country 'tis of thee. So, but even we in America, we know how kingdoms of this world operate, don't we? In kingdoms of this world, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. Look out for number 1. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. We value wealth and power and military might. We're into budget surpluses and deficit spending, often at the same time if we can. We think that we value the things money can buy. If I had to see that commercial for that truck company where the couple gets each other the different colored trucks one more time, I'm going to scream. I'm like, honey, you're getting socks and underwear. I don't know. But we're supposed to want that, right? The kingdoms of this world tell us that. The kingdoms of this world value revenge. I don't know what it is, but my channel often is accidentally on the Dr. Phil show. I've never on purpose tried to watch the Dr. Phil show, but my TV is possessed and Dr. Phil is always on my TV. And people are waiting with bated breath for the horrible shoe to drop. They're waiting for like the wrong spouse to get so mad that a fight breaks out. Like, that's kingdoms of this world kind of stuff. The strongest survive. And we teach our children that from Jump Street. Even in kindergarten, the weakest athletes get picked last at recess. How do I know? 15 years running. You know what I'm saying? That's the natural order of things, say the kingdoms of this world. But if we want to know the real truth, we have to turn our eye toward the man with the busted lip and see what he has to say. He is, after all, the faithful witness. So if kingdoms of this world say, success is measured solely by how much you make, Jesus says, blessed are the poor. Matthew says, blessed are the poor in spirit. Yes, I know. Yes. And Luke says, blessed are the poor. And why? The kingdom of heaven is theirs, the whole kingdom. And Jesus doesn't even say, blessed are the deserving poor, or blessed are the thankful poor, or blessed are the poor who are not addicted to drugs. Imagine that. Earthly kingdoms say, crying is for babies. And why can't you just get over it and move on? But Jesus' kingdom says, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. The world's kingdom says, punish evil and wrongdoing with war, violence, or retribution. Jesus says stuff like, overcome evil with good. Jesus says stuff like, turn the other cheek. Jesus says stuff like, forgive 70 times 7. And we all know how you become great in the world of Emperor Tiberius Caesar. Rising up the ladder of power and influence, right? Climbing over whoever you have to climb over to get there. But Jesus said if you want to be great in his kingdom, you have to be servant to all. Kingdoms of this world respond to sin with a desire for judgment and revenge. Jesus says stuff like, those among you without sin cast the first stone. Waiting. What, no one? Okay. Jesus says things like, love one another. The golden rule is do unto others what as you would have them do unto you. Not do unto others what you can get away with or do unto others what you feel like doing. That's kingdom of this world kind of stuff. What we get from Jesus is the backwards, out of order gospel. Just the opposite of what you think the answer is, rearing its intrusive, miraculous head again. That's the truth that Jesus Christ is testifying to. And the church, that's our King. And what he says is what the truth is. And the church is a place that tries to listen to his voice. My ethics professor at seminary used to say, as hard as it is to tell the truth, the hardest part is knowing what the truth is. See, I think Christians have an advantage in this department. Because if you look at the Gospels, God's truth is not so much a set of facts. It's not so much a what as it is a who. WHO, not Cindy Lou, although she's wonderful. God's truth is not so much a what that we can go look up. In the Gospels, God's truth is a who. Pilate asked Jesus, what is truth? And he said nothing, and he stood there right in front of him. And it's because Jesus is the way. Jesus is the truth. And Jesus is the life. So the church is a place where we come to stare at the face of our King, the one who is truth itself. God doesn't give Pilate easy answers. God doesn't give us easy answers. But God goes one better. God gives us God's self. God gives us Jesus. Now, whenever I think about truth and love mixed together, I'm reminded of an incident with a capital I from our family's history. It was several years ago. The kids were very small and wiggly and didn't like to sit still. And I was determined to have a nice family outing for once. Can I get a witness? So it was Friday night. We were going to go out for Mexican food. It was going to feel like a date. The kids were going to behave. I was going to have a good time, and that's the way it was going to be. Of course, we got there late, so there was a big wait at the restaurant. And one of the children started acting up, who shall remain nameless. So they started acting up, and it was pretty clear that this was how the evening was going to go if I did not intervene. So I took this child over to the corner, and I was going to lay some truth on this child. And I inhaled to speak the truth. And this child said, wait. Before we do this, can I ask you a question? I said, what? What? Before we do this, I just need to know, do you love me? What? Tell you what, if I was bringing live ammo, that unloaded the gun pretty quickly. I think it was Toni Morrison that said, our children need to know that their name is safe in our mouth. And I really like that. It's like my child needed to know that their name was safe in my mouth. That whatever truth was going to be dispensed, it was not apart from love. Love has to come first, really. And when we are with each other, we never speak a truth that is apart from God's love. Why? We're a church family here. We're a covenant community. We have made promises to one another. So if we are to truth tell, we have to always do it with one eye toward the man with the busted lip, right? The one who said, I am the way and the truth and the life. And we need to always do it with our name safe in each other's mouths. After all, our name is always safe in God's mouth. We can't speak the truth apart from Jesus Christ, and we can't speak the truth unless we speak it in love. But there are some things that we can say. I have sat across the table with people, probably even at Bob Evans. Hello? I've sat across the table from people who have looked earnestly in my eye and said things like, I am worried that my husband has Alzheimer's because of something that I did, because I failed to love him enough, and this is God's punishment. Looking at the man with the busted lip, I can lean forward and say, look, I'm no expert, but that doesn't sound like the truth to me. People have said, I think every time I get a cold, it's because I sinned. And I go what Bible are you reading? But that's not true. You think that this happened to you because God wants you to suffer? That's not true. Jesus, the faithful witness, tells us that that's not true. Jesus has the last word about what the truth is. And the truth that he tells will make us free. In John 8:31 and 32 we read, Jesus said to the Jews who had believed in him, if you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. So I submit to you, church, that if you think that there's a truth that's really truthy and true, and it doesn't make you free, maybe it doesn't come from Christ. The truth that is embodied in the man with the busted lip is a truth that we can build a life on. It's a truth we've built this church on, swimming hard upstream against the lies and deceits that surround us as we all brush our teeth and get ready for work and put on our makeup. It is this truth that allows us to stand in the snow during Walk to Bethlehem and sing Gloria in Excelsis Deo. It's that truth that allows us to stand up and sing A Mighty Fortress is Our God during a bad funeral. It's that truth that sends us over to Target to buy a pink sweatsuit for a Wish Upon a Star 5-year-old. It's a truth that pulls us here in late November, all brave and terrified at the same time. Some Christ the King Sunday. It could happen. Right there as you sit in the green chairs with the basketball markings on the floor, staring at the man with the busted lip, you might see him, Christ, the King, enthroned, wounded, victorious. Just for a second we see that it is only Jesus who can tell us what the truth is. And it turns out that's pretty great news. And a seed of something that wells up in us that feels like hope, all wild and irrational, and all appearances to the contrary. There's a king on the throne who calls us his children. There's a king on the throne whose eyes sparkle with love for you. Your name is safe in his mouth. There's a king on the throne that doesn't want us to be limited by the lies that the world would tell us. Now, I know you're all independent-minded Americans. You're not into kings and queens. But on Christ the King Sunday, we're reminded everybody is serving someone or something. All of us have a king, or if you prefer, a queen on the throne of our life. Just this one day, just this once, what if we were to bow before the man with the busted lip who is the King of glory, the Lord of hosts? He's the one whose birth made the angels sing. He's the one whose words made the emperor real nervous. He's the one whom death could not hold. If you're going to have a king, he's the one to choose. So, Pontius Pilate, ask your question. And in Jesus Christ, behold your answer. The truth is not something that you can buy or smoke or eat. The truth is a who. And if you will but cling to him and believe what he says about who you are and who you belong to, the truth can set you free. Even you, Pontius Pilate, even me. As we come to our response to the word read and proclaimed, I wanted to lift up an incident from just this past week. I was minding my own business, folding laundry, preparing to go to North Carolina for Thanksgiving. And there were like 2 people in the office because the rest of us were making our way to other places. And it came to my attention that last weekend, there was an incident on Main Street in Ellicott City where somebody threw about 40 flyers out of their car window. And these flyers were purporting to be from the KKK and about white supremacy. And so I didn't know about it last weekend because I honestly try not to watch the news if I can get away with it. But I found out about it. And so I emailed some of our other United Methodist clergy. And they said, well, what should we do? And so I said, well, I know a church that's ready to do something. So I dashed off an email, and the next thing you know, folks had made up a flyer. And I think we have it on to show on the screen. It says, love is the main thing. Get it? Main Street. That's our pun. Uniting against hatred and discrimination, join us. And we listed Glenmar and all the other United Methodist churches in Ellicott City. And before you could say Happy Thanksgiving, we had some Glenmar folks who took them down to Old Town and gave them out to the shopkeepers there. Many of them had not even heard of the incident, but they sure enough heard about a bunch of churches, including Glenmar, that loved them And many shopkeepers were really glad to get it and said that they'd put it in their window as a declaration of love and what Jesus says is true. So this is just one example of the kind of difference that we can make right here in Ellicott City because you choose to give. Please give generously.